Hello and welcome to this lesson on the UK's main ecosystems. And in previous lessons we've looked at what an ecosystem is, and we've looked at the world's major biomes and how these fit in with the different climate systems, how latitude and how other global factors can influence their location, and also the impact of local factors such as relief, altitude, and also distance from oceans. Now, if we were to take just that information, we would believe that the UK would be completely a deciduous woodland. But we know that that's not the case. So we need to look into more detail at what are the main UK ecosystems and what are their characteristics. So here we have a map of the UK with different colours on. Now obviously this map isn't very good because it hasn't got a title or it hasn't got a key, but there's a reason for that. It's because here you can see on some of the UK's main ecosystems. Now if you were watching the first slide intently, you would have seen the key ecosystems we're going to look at. So what do you think the key ecosystems are in the UK? And try and draw on your own knowledge and understanding and recognition when you've been out and about in the countryside or on holidays, and what are the different types of landscapes and ecosystems that you've experienced. Now hopefully you've done that, and you should know that the main ones in the UK, particularly the ones we're going to study, are moorland, heathland, wetlands and woodlands. So let's see if you can have a guess at what the different colours stand for. You can see we've got the different colours in different locations. So which of these would represent moorland or heathland or wetlands or woodlands? And just have a little guess. You can pause the video, see if you can work it out. And how did you do? So you can see the most obvious one is perhaps the orange colour, the moorlands. And if you know anything about the UK, you'll notice that there's a large spine of them running up through the centre of northern England, as well as over areas in Yorkshire, and also looking at areas in the Lake District and northern Mid Wales and Exmoor and Dartmoor. And that is because these moorlands are found on high land, where there are mountains and tall hills. We can also see there is quite a lot of the heathlands. Now these are lands which are lower down, similar to moorlands, but lower down, and they have different characteristics. Notice there's not a great deal of woodland. There is some in the south and east of England, as well as more and more in Scotland. So how does that fit with what you know about the UK? So here we have images of each of the 4 different ecosystems found in the UK. But can you use your geographical skills to decipher and work out which is going to be which? So here we have the first one, the moorlands. As I said earlier, these tend to be the high areas of land, normally around 400 to 500 meters above sea level and above. And you can see they tend to be very rocky, and there's generally low-lying vegetation, things such as heathers and grass and mosses. Now as you can see, if I click here we have some more information that you'll need to read. Now hundreds and thousands of years ago, this all would have been covered in forest. So why is it changed? Well, the main reason is human interaction, and that's really important when you're understanding the ecosystems in the UK, in that much of the UK has been altered by human interaction. So here we have a typical heathland environment. What do you notice about it? What species can you see? We have the purple heathers, we have the gorse bushes, and we have the birch trees growing here. Now, have you seen anywhere like this, and where was it? So here are some of the key features of Heathlands. You can pause the video down now and make notes. Now this is perhaps the easiest one to spot, which is the woodlands. The woodlands can vary all over the country, depending on the climate and depending on the impact of humans. Many of the woodlands that you may see today are actually man-made, in that they are trees which are non-native species which have been planted for their timber. And there are very few mature and historic woodlands remaining. Here are some of the key facts. And the final one are the wetlands. And as you can see, very different in the type of grass vegetation and the sporadic trees which are planted around. But most notable is the amount of water and moisture held in the ground. So again, some key information for you to read. And do note the impacts of the human interaction that you can see here. The fact that most of it has been drained for farmland. So you've now seen the images, so you have an idea of what each of these different ecosystems look like. And you've also got some of the key information there as well. Now the next task is for you to make a copy of the table that you can see here. And you may need to take it over the page of a book. And then you need to write some of the key information and facts about the distribution or the location of the ecosystems within the UK and the different features and characteristics of it. So you need to make sure that you're using the right information from each of the right boxes to go into these areas. If you're not sure, you can rewind this video and have another look. But pause now and carry on with the work. Now have a look at this additional information, and can you add this extra information into your table so you've got even more detail on each of the UK ecosystems. So you can pause now and add the information. So we return back to this map now. So can you use this diagram and in your book give a description of the location of the UK's main ecosystems? Now I think this is worth 4 marks. So you're probably going to want to talk about each of the different ecosystems. And don't forget that when you're describing the location, you need to use compass points, and you may link it to the countries, and you could also talk about the relief and the mountain ranges. So have a go at that now. So how did you get on? Well, as we said earlier on, you might want to discuss that you can see that the moorlands run up the spine of northern England, but also in Yorkshire and the Lake District and in highland areas in the southwest. And this is because these tend to be areas well above sea level, forming the mountains and hills. You could also say that the wetlands or lowlands are quite extensive all over the UK, but there aren't many in Wales. But there are large numbers in East Anglia or the east of England, and also joining the moorlands where the heavy rain falls off them. Now earlier I also mentioned about the impact of human action on the landscape. Now here you can see another map, but notice here that we've got the urban areas, which is the towns and cities where people live. And you can also see those areas used for farmland, for growing crops and for raising animals. And you'll notice that much of the UK, the ecosystems have been changed and altered to allow for human activity. And so the scale of the ecosystems are much, much smaller. Now, there is another major type of ecosystem that relates to the UK, and it shouldn't have escaped your attention, but the United Kingdom is a series of large islands and smaller islands, and that means that the marine ecosystem or the ecosystem in the sea is also very important to us in the UK. So first of all, we're going to have a look at what benefits does the UK marine ecosystems bring. Now, it's really important that for the following slides that you do make notes. There are notes on the pages that you need to copy down as a minimum, but also you can add extra information from your own understanding and also from the things I am talking about. So please make sure you have a title, what benefits do UK marine ecosystems bring, and you write detailed notes underneath them. So have a look at these 4 different photos. What do you think are the different benefits that you can see here? How might people gain from using the marine ecosystems? So pause the video and just write some ideas down in your books. So we can split the marine ecosystem into the areas close to shore and also the areas further offshore. So, well, the UK ecosystems are very important for tourism and recreation, whether it's holiday makers and people going on the beaches, or it could be activities like surfing and kite surfing or swimming. It's also very important for wildlife. Here we can see the range of wildlife in the rock pools and the seals, and also the breeding grounds for the small fish and seahorses. So the inshore habitat is very important, both for wildlife and for recreation and tourism. Then we have the offshore ecosystems. These are further out to sea where conditions are much worse. So what can you see here? Well, obviously for large scale trawler fishing, it's very important to the UK industry. Also, there are reserves of oil and gas in the North Sea far off Scotland, and so that becomes important. And more increasingly, it's becoming important for other types of energy, such as these massive wind farms. So therefore, they are very important for commercial fishing and for energy production as well. But it is important to realise that while the ecosystems are very valuable to everybody in the UK because they provide us with the food, the building materials, some of the medicines and some of the natural resources we need, they're also very important culturally because they give us these areas we can go out and relax and take part in activities. And the ecosystems are also important because they support themselves. If you start to damage the food chain or the different plants, then the ecosystem cannot work as a system and it will all break down. And humans tend to be very good at ruining those ecosystems. So what do you think this picture or cartoon is trying to show you? Well, here we can see a number of the different activities that we as humans do. One of them is overfishing, which is often in the news, in that if you take too many of certain types of species, that will affect the whole of the food web. There are rules in place to try and stop fishermen catching the small baby fish so the stocks can recover, but it still can lead to lots of problems. And also the way in which the fishing happens is the big nets can actually scrape along the seabed and damage all the plants which are very important for the ecosystem. Another problem which can be seen is eutrophication. Now this is where all of the chemicals we use on farms to make our crops grow better get into the water, which then flows into the sea. And this can cause lots of bacteria and algae to grow, which can steal the resources from the rest of the ecosystem. Sometimes when we create harbours and ports, we can also damage the ecosystems, and even our recreation with lots of people being at the coast, that can also have an impact onto the habitats. And then finally, the construction of wind farms, although these are seen as very good for the reduction of CO2 and reduction in use of fossil fuels, there are concerns that they could cause problems with migratory patterns. and they could also cause damage to the marine wildlife, although it must be said that these aren't proven.